Yes, we know you're all still hyped about Dylan RAIOLA, but there are those 84 other scholarships. So we will get to those. And of course, a big recruiting week and National Signing Day is coming up just in a few hours. So we will set you all up right here at Huskers Live, right here at the Voice of College Football. Leave those comments and questions there in the chat. Consider a contribution. We would appreciate that. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. You can also do it right here on the Super Chat. And again, we will check out your comments and questions. We got Justin Adams here, of course, from Cheesy Corn Sports, and we will talk a little bit more about what Justin's got going on there. And of course, Justin was right on the spot with the Dylan RAIOLA commitment. And if you have yet to check out that live stream, check it out right here on the channel. Justin, how you doing tonight?
Not too bad. Like we talked about before, just went and got a little haircut, feeling fresh just in time for the stream. So,
well, like you, I hit the gym as well. I just got back from the gym right before we did our Iowa show, which was just ended here in the last few minutes. So I'm feeling good. I know that I'm going to be ready to eat when we get done. So we're going to push through the next hour and do some good work here for everyone.
For sure.
And folks, here it is, National Signing Day. It's still a big deal. And we will pull up the commitment list and also talk about some guys that are kind of on the fringe here that I'm not going to say are going to make or break the class, Justin, but in regards to really putting the finishing touches on what could be a great class. I'll throw out the three names. We'll give them a look. We'll size up some of the stats, and I'll let you take it on from here. We've got Larry Tarver, a cornerback, 5'11", 160. We've got Amari Sanders, also a cornerback, 6'2", 167. We've got Vincent at Shavers. I've heard a lot about him, the linebacker as well.
Yep. Yeah, with Larry Tarver. So it's looking like kind of like Larry Tarver might be probably our most likely 90% chance, 90.8% chance of confidence that he's going to flip. He is the Maryland commitment. He's kind of been being targeted by Nebraska for a little while now. 98th overall corner in the class, number 139 player overall in Florida. So, he would be a good get, especially, with the churn at the defensive back position. We lost a couple guys there. So just kind of getting some depth there. And, it's one of those things where it's the development. We saw the development of our defensive backfield, this previous year under Tony White. So, I think they're really making it a point to try to focus on getting a lot of these recruits and these young guys in for the defense. Because our defense was so solid last year and we're returning a lot of those guys. So I think they feel like, if they focus more kind of offensively on the transfer portal side of things, and then they're recruiting more defensively through the recruiting aspect. So, but a lot to like, a couple of these guys were surprise visitors over the weekend. And, crystal balls have been coming in all day for, Vincent Shavers, Dylan Williams, they've been getting more crystal balls all day. I'm a little bit, these crystal balls, they haven't been our friend over the last week. But, the confidence coming in on multiple recruiting platforms from, Sean Callahan is pretty on point with a lot of his stuff. When you get some guys like these directors of recruiting and stuff like that, putting these in, it gives you a little bit more of an indication of the confidence in them. So, again, just, really it's really imperative that Nebraska solidifies that defensive back position and keeps these guys coming in, and developing them. He's had a good track. Matt Rule's had a good track record of, developing some of these defensive backs, i.e. Jalen Petrie, playing for the Texans now, wasn't even a Matt Rule recruit, but he came in, developed him from a unranked, potentially borderline 3-star to, an NFL player that's playing at a high level. So I'm excited to see the type of guys that they're going after and seeing how they can implement them and develop them.
Got some more numbers on Larry Tarver. His most recent season, 27 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 4 picks from him. And there you see, according to 247 Sports, top 100 cornerback, top 150 player in the state of Florida, currently committed out of Norland High School, Miami, to the University of Maryland.
Correct. Yeah. And like you see, just a little bit of a slight frame, but that's something that they're going to address. He's not going to necessarily have to produce immediately. So Nebraska's still pretty solid on the defensive side of the ball as far as returning starters. I think 8 of the 11 are coming back. So it's one of those things, like I said, where they can recruit and they can kind of bring these guys into development. But as we saw last year, some of these guys got meaningful playing time, especially, going through the 2022 class and looking at the previous ones, 2023 class. There was actually more production from guys in the 2023 class than previous years, in 2021 and stuff like that. So
absolutely. I'm seeing a theme here, Justin. We're going back down to Miami Central, Vincent Shavers. And I don't know where the lean is here in regards to what you've picked up from various crystal balls, but top 100 linebacker, pretty much in that same range as Tarver in regards to where he's ranked in the Sunshine State at 6'1", 205.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the linebacker position, it looks like from the offers of 2024, 2025, linebacker is one of the positions they're targeting the most. Include, offensive line is of course part of that as well. So heavily targeting the linebacker position. And, Matt Rule likes to go after these kind of, diamond in the rough type of guys, these 3 stars that he feels he can develop. And Vincent Shavers, great size for coming out of high school, 6'1", 205, very physical guy. But, I believe, Matt Rule targeting Georgia, Florida, Texas. He's part of it, I believe, is just him going after some of these guys that play against a lot of this stiff competition in high school. And, that is going to help them immediately be able to come in and kind of, just in case they're getting thrown to the fire and stuff like that. So the biggest thing too is he's not just attacking, those states. He's definitely attacking the local Nebraska area as well. But it's nice to see us getting a little bit back into Florida. We were a little bit shunned from Florida because we had the Flora-Braska movement under Scott Frost, and it didn't really go well. So it's nice to kind of dip our toes back into there because, the big states for the top guys out of high school football, Texas, California, Florida, those are 3 huge states, in Ohio. Those are 4 huge states for high school players. And it's no secret those guys play against the top competition. It's no secret why those guys are typically rated in the top 100 and why those guys typically pan out the most, so exciting to see us dipping our toes back over there.
Shavers here, most recent high school season that just concluded here, 14 tackles for loss at Miami Central, 7 sacks, highly productive player there. Again, 6'1", 205.
Yep.
Also wanted to take a little bit of a closer look at Amari Sanders, who at cornerback at 6'2", obviously he's got some size to grow into, a bigger cornerback in regards to height. Only 167, so he's a lean, lanky guy. But again, strength and conditioning will work on that.
Yep.
And get him in here and pounding some weights.
Yeah, his brother is actually a basketball player, I believe, at Notre Dame, I saw. So, athletic, lineage there. And I believe he also plays basketball too. So, it's one of those dual sport athletes. These guys are typically, these dual sport athletes are guys that they like to bring in because, when you have the athleticism to be able to excel, at a high level in multiple sports, it's just that's the extra leg up you need in the athleticism department. And this isn't the first guy that they've gone after that's a dual sport athlete. There was a couple in last year's class as well. So, but yeah, just again, just another kid out of Florida, 84th ranked quarter, 103rd, 30th ranked in Florida. So right around the same, range, as Larry Tarver as well. So again, just one of those other 3 stars. It's interesting to see, we put out 1 or 2 offers to maybe a 5-star, 4-star there, but the majority is going after these 3 stars, and it's just right up Matt Rule's alley of what he normally likes to do. But being, we got 9 cornerbacks, 2 committed in this class. So it's definitely one of those things where we're going to have to get some more guys in the boat. And so that's why attacking this position, especially, and hopefully we can land, I'm hoping we can land maybe 4 more players in at least the next coming days, or because the class is at, I believe, 25 commits as it sits. 25 or 28 was it? I think it was 25. So not a whole lot of room, as you mentioned before. We got 85 scholarships. So it's one of those things we're going to have to get those numbers down. So it could be a player for a player. Not sure how that's going to work necessarily, how they're going to navigate that. So, trending up for a lot of these guys, but it's interesting to read the tea leaves and see kind of how they are recruiting these guys. And because, last year we didn't get to see a full Matt Rule cycle. So this kind of gives us an indicator of what to expect in the coming years of how the recruiting is going to go. Again, like I said, he's targeting more in-state guys than we have in the last 5 years. So that's exciting to see too, because, that Nebraska radius especially is one of those that was something we lost over time. Back in 2020, 8% of our class was from Nebraska within the state. And this year, 32%, which is the highest, like I said, in the last 5 years.
So I'm curious about this, Justin. I'm going to pull up the top rated players in the state of Florida, since all 3 of these guys are all Florida players, and they're all in that 125 to 130, 40 range, something like that. I'm just curious what we're going to come across here. So we're not looking at the top rated players in the state of Florida, anything like that. But obviously Matt Rule feels as though these guys have a ton of raw talent, can be developed. And I want to see some of the other schools that are in that. So we're right at the very top there. Number 1, Jeremiah Smith, who is rumored to be flipping to either Florida State or Miami from Ohio State, but we shall see how all that plays out on Wednesday. But if we go all the way down, where are we? We're going to have to load some more. We're in the top 50. We've got some Miami players.
Yeah, these guys, around the 100?
Well, we got Grant.
Brixton.
Did something, I think it went off of Florida. Why'd that happen?
Get your stuff together 24/7.
I had it on Florida and then it skipped. Okay, to the overall list, because I was like, oh, Nebraska. No, it's Grant Brix. I was just curious to see what other schools pop up here.
And speaking of, they did send the full court press over to Carter Nelson. Just another point. They sent basically the entire coaching staff over there to Carter Nelson as well. For those that were wondering, with the Kalen situation, he helped peer recruit Carter Nelson. So seems like Carter Nelson is kind of one of those that they put the full court press on at the last second just to make sure that they kept him in the class, because again, the tight end position is very important to Marcus Satterfield's offense, and he likes to run out multiple tight ends. So
if we start in this 120 range, you're seeing UCF, Michigan State, Miami, UCF again, Illinois, North Carolina, Rutgers, Vandy, Pitt, Maryland, SMU's there, Michigan State's there again, and Rutgers, UCF. Clemson's got a player at linebacker. Actually, we did a profile on him on our Clemson channel. Yep. Georgia Tech, Virginia, Washington State. So nothing to be concerned with, because I know a lot of people freak out when they see these rankings and they're trying to compare them to other schools across the country that are, getting just blue chips straight across the board, all of them. But all those players, if you're looking at all the schools that we just ripped off, certainly have, not that they're all going to pan out, because they won't.
Yeah.
But there shouldn't be any kind of alarm over the rankings of those 3 players we just talked about.
No, and the thing about it is kind of like I mentioned before, I think the biggest thing to pay attention to is kind of looking at the retention from that we've had from the 2019, 2020, 2021 class and comparing that to 2023. Different coaching staffs have different ability to not only bring those guys in, but keep them, and develop them. And we haven't been able to keep them and get these guys on the field. And a lot of these classes, you see a lot of names in there that we're really excited about, that never saw either extensive playing time or didn't pan out the way they were wanted to, or ended up leaving for one reason or for another. And that's one of the reasons why I checked back to 2023 class just to see the productivity of those guys versus the previous year's class. And I think that's more indicative of what people need to pay attention to outside of just stars, because, people were talking about Daniel Kalen. He bumped up to a 4-star, dropped back down to a 3-star. There's so many things that factor into these rankings that people don't really take into account, like camps, like going to a lot of camps and stuff like that is the reason why some of these guys get bumped up from a 4-star to a 5-star or from a 3-star to a 4-star. It's just a visibility thing. Some of these guys will get bumped up when they when they get recruited or commit to a certain school. Some of them will get bumped down. Some of them get bumped up when they get offered by a certain school. So the rankings are there to be used as a guide, but they're not necessarily Bible. So they're not one of those things that we need to rely upon, especially in the transfer portal day and age, because recruiting, I'm not going to say it's less important, but in essence it is in a way, because so many of these guys are moving, after year one, when the two deeps come out on the depth chart and stuff like that. It's one of those things that, like, we always look at these recruiting classes on the surface, but the way they pan out over the years is drastically different. And I think what we got to pay attention to is just going forward, how this coaching staff handles each and every recruiting class that they have, the retention they have, the ability to get them on the field. And I think looking at 2023, like I said, seeing how many of those guys produced last year from the top of that class compared to the rest, it was night and day in comparison.
Yeah, when it comes to the recruiting rankings, I'm a big believer in the recruiting rankings, but that doesn't mean every ranking is going to pan out. It's not even close. There are going to be tons of booms. There's going to be tons of busts. There are going to be 2-stars that come out of nowhere and become really, really good players. All that. But when you put all of it together, the compilation of all the masses of all the numbers, you can't ignore that. If you go to the total team composite, for example, of the last 10 years, and you look at that, you're basically going to, when you look at the top 5 programs, you're going to be looking at the college football playoff. You're going to be looking at the teams that are constantly in the playoff. And that's what it is.
Yep.
I'm not concerned that Nebraska has the 23rd class instead of the 17th class or anything like that.
Correct.
But if they're bringing in the 45th class, they're not going to be competing for Big Ten championships. I can tell you that.
And in 2022, we fielded the 41st ranked class. So, even in recent years, we've been that low. And, in the partial offseason that he had last year to retain, even the 30th ranked class was huge. And the last point on this is Matt Rule also had to completely pivot on focusing on a lot of these guys to put his attention on Dylan RAIOLA. And so maybe some of these guys that he had his eyes on to potentially try to flip that could have been higher ranking. Maybe he needed to backpedal on those a little bit and go after some of these guys that they had been recruiting a little heavier already. So that way it's more likely that I can kind of get a flip going because of, like I mentioned yesterday when we talked, the relationships that he's built with these guys. And, he's able to then kind of build these relationships, maintain these relationships. And that's been indicative lately with a lot of the movement of these guys. So,
yeah, the class rank right now is 24. That is the overall rank. The composite ranks 20. So in regards to, did you happen to notice what the bump was when Dylan RAIOLA was added?
It went from 24 to 19 on 24/7, I believe. And it was, I think I had it written down. I
That
couldn't
makes
remember. I
sense.
think it's
Period.
24th. It's 22nd on 3, I think. I'm trying to remember the other ones, but I know it went from 24th to 19th on, which is a huge jump for one recruit. That's kind of actually crazy.
Yeah,
So
it most definitely is. All right, folks, we do this every Tuesday night. Justin Adams is here, Cheesy Corn Sports. Why don't we take a quick hit on Cheesy Corn and find out what's going on over there?
yeah, so just a typical, fantasy football stuff. We're running our Friday Night Lights where we go over football and the recap the action from the Thursday night game, the previous weekend's NFL slate. And then Sunday before the games, we kind of get you ready for fantasy football. It's mainly a fantasy football channel. So if you're into that sort of stuff, where you just kind of help you, get start sit questions answered, you can call in, do whatever, chat with us. So it's pretty casual. We just like to have fun and hang out, talk football. So
Has anything happened in the fantasy football world the last few years in regards to the way they set up these leagues or the rankings or the stats? Have they added any more stats? Has
oh,
anything really changed?
there's a lot more in-depth stats. I'm kind of an analytical nerd when it comes to this stuff. So there's tons of in-depth stats you can get into, and it's hard to differentiate which ones lead to fantasy points. So that's one of those things you kind of have to figure out over time. But dynasty fantasy football is a thing now. Dynasty fantasy football is one of those things where you literally draft a team, and then that's your team going forward, and you draft out of the rookie pool each year. And so that's become my favorite because you're just kind of a GM at that point. You trade picks, for the rookie draft and stuff like that. So it's a good time. So we cover both redraft and dynasty content.
And folks, speaking of all that nerd type content, all that the numbers, the analytics and everything, we are going to, at some point during the off season, we will break down, probably once we get all the players settled to a certain extent, and we'll go through Pro Football Focus and see, look at Justin's evaluation on everybody versus what Pro Football Focus thinks of them, and compare them against like players in the Big Ten, and see how we evaluate both the Huskers, but also Pro Football Focus, because had a number of people, not Justin in particular, but a number of people within our network who do shows get on me about we need Pro Football Focus. So I said, all right, we'll get an account, and I need to dive in there and give it a look and see how they have these players rated for 2023.
They do a pretty good job over there. It's one of those things where they kind of aggregate the data based on play results and stuff like that. So it's a unique system they use, and as with anything else, it has its flaws. ESPN made that QBR. It has its flaws, but each thing can kind of equal out, and you can kind of get a feel for what the trend is, what the indication is. So I was filtering through a lot of the offensive lineman stuff a couple weeks ago. So hopefully I'm going to be putting out something on that, just kind of breaking down the development of the offensive line too, because that's been a question for a lot of people, is our offensive line progression.
I like that there's been attention given statistically to the offensive line position here just in the last 5 years or so, because before that it was basically a select number of people that gave the film enough study, scouts, coaches, to tell the rest of us, they are good offensive linemen, they aren't, this is what they do well, this is what they don't do well, because nobody knew really, unless you were really a super fan of that team.
And it wasn't, it's not really the sexy, when the offensive lineman guys come in, it's not really the sexy commitments that people, necessarily love to see. People get hyped over quarterback, running back, wide receiver for obvious reasons, but everything starts there, especially in the Big Ten. So, it is nice to see a little bit more coverage on these offensive linemen, and just starting to understand, offensive line in general is one of those things that, in particular, you need to recruit. It's hard to patchwork an offensive line together through a transfer portal and stuff like that. These guys need cohesiveness. They need to gel, and that requires guys that play together multiple years. So that's another reason why I think it's imperative that, we see a lot of these 25 offers and 26 offers for offensive linemen, because it looks like they may attack a multiple, angle transfer portal versus and recruiting with a lot of the other positions, but it seems very intent on recruiting, tight end, offensive line, and those type of positions. So,
Justin, if Matt Rule keeps this up, you're going to have to do something this time of year that you haven't done in forever, and that's watch a Nebraska football game.
Yeah, and it in a way, I know we wanted to make a bowl game and all that, but hasn't it worked out for the best that the fact that they didn't? Because who knows how much effort would have even been put into, or would have been able to be put into, going after Dylan Raiola, because even with the situation as it was and the full court press on, there were still questions, because when you're trying to pull a guy from Georgia, it's not an easy task. So they needed all hands on deck for that. And almost a blessing in disguise, like I was talking about most of the season, big picture. We got to look at big picture, and short term, it hurts to not have the bowl game, and those 14 extra practices were huge. But we talked about how important those 14 extra practices were, but it's all situational. We didn't know we had a shot at Raiola, and it worked out. So.
And certainly we appreciate everyone who's encouraging everybody else in the chat, and everybody that's going to be watching later. Please hit the like button and please subscribe. Douglas letting us know that we need to get on it for our preview of game one, because it's only 279 days away. So, Justin, get on that. Get us a preview of week one against, I can't even think of who they're playing in week one off the top of my head.
Or I can't remember, I saw it in the chat a lot yesterday. I have ADHD, so my memory, and me looking into next season, it makes the off season go so much slower. So I try to focus on one day at a time, because I used to put countdowns on my phone and it drug by. I found myself watching highlights of all the old games I could find on YouTube and stuff just to hold me over. So,
and there is so much to focus on during the off season now that there's no reason to deal with that right now.
Yep.
I'll ask you this, Justin, between Tarver, Shavers, and Sanders, my first question would be, based on everything that you've gathered, do you have a preference if they're going to get one, or if they're going to get two, or obviously if they get all three, but do you have a preference between those three?
So I would say probably I like Larry Tarver. He seems to be somebody that the coaching staff was very, very high on. So, just looking at kind of how they've gone after these guys, it just seems like Larry Tarver is a good fit for what they want to run on the defense. And, I trust that a lot of these, Tony White's eye for talent as well. So I think Larry Tarver is one of those. Again, just we've been after him a while, and it seems like he's the most focus is being put on him. So I would say, just based on that alone, just going by what the coaching staff is doing, I would say he's probably the most valuable, just because they're looking so heavy at him and they're putting a lot of effort into him. And then we have Dylan Williams, committed to Oregon as well, was another one that was, but I think Williams is more of like a long shot. And so, I would love to see a guy like Dylan Williams, like we mentioned earlier, with the recruiting rankings, a 4-star over a 3-star, but you have to go with the guys that you have the highest likelihood to get. And again, just it's splitting hairs with those guys, and the staff seems very confident in their ability to eye out talent. So I would say probably Larry Tarver is the most important, and then Vincent Shavers after that.
And then, based on everything that you've gathered, what percentage chance would you give each one of these guys to sign on the dotted line? Tarver.
Tarver, if I'm going by on 3, 90%. No, but I would say Tarver is very much I don't want to say a lock, but I would say I would say probably 75% confidence. That's about as high as my confidence level goes right now. After last week. So I'd say about 75 for Tarver.
How about Shavers?
Shavers, probably about 60.
Okay. And then Sanders.
Probably 55, 50, right in that range.
And again, Dylan Williams, that would be just
Yeah, it's a long shot. It's one of those that, like, at least it's worth taking a look at. Again, you never know when you get a commitment as big as Raiola, you never know what kind of attention that's going to grab from some of these guys. For instance, we offered a 5-star today in the 2025 class. So they're starting to put out more 5-star offers. So it's one of those things that you never know the impact of a guy like Raiola and what that's going to get in the boat. We could see huge surprises. There's a lot of speculation that there's some big flips coming, but speculation is just that. So looking at it as it is, yeah, I would say it's one of those things where they are going after the guys that they have built the biggest relationships with, are the most present, I guess, in kind of are the most their confidence level, for lack of a better word. And then also just throwing some feelers out to some of these 4-star guys just to see if they can, potentially land any in the boat off of the Raiola news.
Are you ready for this announcement, Justin? You ready for this level of coverage here? You ready for this?
I'm ready.
This may blow you away here. Everybody listen up. National Signing Day is tomorrow.
Yep.
Join us over on the main channel. I can't guarantee that I'm going to be talking coherently, or I'm going to have to pry my eyes open, or what kind of condition I'm going to be at 9 a.m. I can also not guarantee whether it's going to be 9:03 or 9:07. It might be a few minutes late, but 9 a.m. Eastern time, we will be going live on the main channel. We will be bringing in media, beat writers, all the folks from the familiar sites that you guys are familiar with, On 3 and Rivals and 247 Sports. And we will be getting reports, folks, from Virginia, Iowa, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Oklahoma State, Oregon, Wisconsin, Kentucky, Ohio State, Clemson, Penn State, Washington, Florida State, Miami, Texas. So that's our National Signing Day coverage.
Mass coverage.
So we do our best.
Yep.
I will be planted to this seat basically all day.
Well, that's no different than usual.
This is true. This is true. It's just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more. And in the midst of all that, we'll have Steve Dace on Michigan podcast to break down Alabama, Michigan. We're going to do a block of playoff coverage from about 3 to 4, right in the middle of all that. All right.
And a couple more things to put out just based on some of the comments. Speaking of Daniel Kaelin, I know you probably saw, or I think I told you yesterday about Daniel Kaelin too, being retained. So that was massive in terms of this year's class, because Kaelin was such a big peer recruiter for this team. Kaelin has been Nebraska through and through. And a lot of these guys like Carter Nelson and a couple other guys he built great relationships with, and retaining him, a lot of these guys, posted about it, and it was imperative, I think, that Nebraska retained him. So that's another thing too, with the Kyle McCord news and stuff like that going down. It also could be a blessing in disguise that Daniel Kaelin decided to stay just for the long-term future of the program as well. And Danny Kaelin just kind of, he's a big body guy too. And just, it shows what they want this offense to kind of look like. A lot of people were talking about McCord and Raiola and these guys not being a good fit for the offense, but people are looking at last year's offense as an indication of what they think Satterfield wants to run. But last year's offense was a patchwork. We didn't have the necessary pieces in place to run the offense the way he wanted to run it. So I'm thinking, instead of looking at that, we need to look at the tea leaves and how they're recruiting and see, like, okay, this is the style they want to run. They want to run this pro style offense. They like these guys who are a little bit, bigger bodied. We had big body guys before, but these guys they're athletic enough to move around in the pocket and extend the plays, but they're also pass first guys. They are set in the pocket. They roll the pocket to pass. I don't think we're going to see a ton of QB designed runs in the coming years. I think it's going to be more so just physicality, running the ball to set up the deep pass. And again, we didn't have the ability to do the deep pass. Satterfield likes to pass the ball deep, and we were limited, really relegated to a short to intermediate pass game, which is another part of why, the offense, I think, couldn't get any momentum. It just wasn't the style of offense that Satterfield likes to run. So I think in this coming year, we're going to start to see this offense look like they want it to. So I think last year, just looking at that offense, even the way they called the plays, it's not indicative of what this is going to look like in the future. So I caution people to not to worry too much about talking about fit, because after 1 year, we don't know what kind of fit yet, just because we have 1 year sample size with a previous coaching staff's players and stuff like that. So it's another thing to caution people on.
And with the pursuit of Kyle McCord, I'm thinking they're still in the market for a veteran quarterback to either be the guy in 24 if Raiola's not ready, or compete.
Well, so there's rumblings of Casey Thompson, but I just think I believe firmly that the Casey Thompson stuff is a lot of, Casey Thompson's being in town. It's people like to speculate, especially on social media. So, he'll be posting to Instagram that he's hanging out with Gabe Ervin. He posted that. He posted to close friends, something along the lines of reposting somebody saying, run it back. And then today there was a pair of red and white shoes that somebody posted. That's like, okay, like, is this a sign? But, they weren't even Adidas shoes. Nebraska's an Adidas, so it's little stuff like that you have to think about. And there's no really indications of another guy that we're pursuing. I'm not sure how that would impact our current QB room. I don't know what they're trying to do with Chubba. We still are unsure about that. If we're going to lose Chubba, if we're going to retain him, I'm sure the staff is probably getting a feel for that. And that would probably tell us, that's probably what they're waiting on to see if they are going to need to go after another guy in this, to see what Harburg and Purdy are going to do. But I think the biggest thing was just, making sure Kalen stayed in the boat, going after Raiola. And then from there, I think these supplemental pieces are going to be the first priority as we wait to see what Chubba and Harburg, kind of do from here.
Justin, probably the most important question I'm going to ask tonight is it Raiola or Raiola? You're a Raiola guy.
Well, so I read earlier that it's RAIOLA, and I'm trying my best to get it right, but I'm so dead set on saying it like that. I hate mispronouncing people's name, but I think it's disrespectful. So I'm trying to work on it. Prince Will, I apologize. Prince Will Mama Whalen. Like, I'm never going to be able to get his name right. So I apologize to him in advance. So, but I think it's RAIOLA.
Okay. So I think I naturally said Raiola because of his uncle. And I thought from years and years and years ago that stuck in my mind that it was pronounced Raiola. Then I thought a lot of people out there were saying Raiola. Then once I heard you, and you're not the only one, say Raiola, I looked at that RAI and I thought, well, maybe it is Raiola.
Yeah.
So
I think I read it from Sean Callahan had put it, had said it somewhere, or no, he had, I think I saw something like somebody posted a little snippet of an article somebody posted from a Sean Callahan article. So I could be off base. I'd have to re-peek at that, but I'm pretty sure he said, like, and he got it from, Dominic. That's where he got the information from of how to pronounce it right. So I'll look back at it to confirm, because it looks like people are disagreeing. I'm from Texas, so don't trust my pronunciations on anything.
Yeah, our guy Jose says it's rye, like rye bread, and TMZ is saying it's rye.
I really need to find that again. I will confirm that. I promise, for everybody here, I will confirm that and get back to y'all, because I definitely want to say it right as well. And everybody saying I'm wrong, I apologize. Again, I'm from Texas. Bear with me.
Well, it's two people.
Yeah, but that's 2 versus 1. All right, I'm already losing.
Yeah, I was just curious about that because
Yeah,
I like you. I don't want to mispronounce people's names. So
yeah. I'm seeing if I could. I'm seeing if I could find that real quick just to defend my honor here. But I don't know where it was. What Twitter account it was on. So regardless, I mean, as long as he's playing for us,
yes.
I'll go with it.
Now, with all of the connections that you have and the various sites that you frequent,
Mhm.
message boards and all that, are you seeing what we're starting to see here in the last few minutes of the chat with maybe some Georgia people jumping in and there being some kind of
So I will say that I don't go on message boards. I stay away
okay.
from message boards. I've never been on a message board. I know from just what I see on Twitter and people reposting message boards and the speculation. The thing about getting your information from social media right now in these message boards is everything on there is speculation, and about 25% of it's true, but people will use that as confirmation bias to be like, okay, well, this stuff is like pretty accurate, like they'll take some of the stuff that, some of these guys are the insiders are putting there that they're not putting the articles and stuff like that. But I think people need to pay more attention to what they're putting in their articles, because that's probably the stuff that they're more confident on as opposed to these message boards. I know if I go on these message boards, it's just going to get entrenched in my head and I might start talking about it. So I avoid those at all costs. I don't even sign up for those. So I let the other Husker fans speculate on that, but read, just look into the stuff that they're actually talking about and putting out from the sources themselves, because that's more of an indication of what's more likely, and it matches up. The majority of what I hear as well matches up with what they're saying as well.
Week 1, as somebody let us know in the chat, is against UTEP. The Miners went 3-9 last year, so that's Nebraska's game 1, and
UTEP,
then
that was it.
it gets a little tougher after that.
I said UNLV. I was close.
Yeah, you had the U right, and
It
you
was a
were
U.
headed out west there where you are, so
Oh,
out that direction.
I didn't answer your Georgia question. I apologize. So what I'm seeing from Georgia fans, and I don't understand it. Okay, so if I was a Georgia fan and I had blue chip after blue chip after blue chip, right, and my team won every game for that long, back to back national championships, and the only reason they're not in the playoff this year is because they lost that last game, I would not be concerned about losing a 5. I would not be if Nebraska lost a player to, if we were up there in the rankings 5, 6, and constantly recruiting top 5, and we're a premier destination. I wouldn't be worried about losing a player, even though it is a big player. But I wouldn't be worried about losing that guy to a school that's kind of like, I don't want to say we're kind of dormant, and so it's not one of those things where they lost it to a rival. So I guess I just don't understand the response. There was Colorado fans in my live stream yesterday for some reason. I know we play them next year, but it's just like I don't understand the outrage or why they're even like so focused on Nebraska. And I don't know if part of it's just because people like to hate on Nebraska because Nebraska's down. I think people are a little nervous right now because this is the type of move that can completely can completely change the trajectory of the program and flip us right back to where we need to be. So I think a lot of that might be where it's coming from. And Georgia's a little bit insecure because they're not a blue blood. So,
Oh, there's a shot.
Not yet. Not yet.
Well, what do you have to do to be a blue blood?
Just do it a little longer. I'm going off of I can't remember the page. There's this formula that they do each year on Twitter, and basically what they do is they have a lot of different people and stuff like that rank the blue bloods, and they go by their percentage. And Georgia isn't on there yet. Nebraska's one of the 7, I believe. It's the USC, the Texas, the Ohio State, and stuff like that. I don't believe I saw Georgia on there, but it won't take them too much longer to get on there.
Okay. That's interesting because this is how I look at it. And I'm not saying this is right, this is correct. I distinguish the difference between blue blood and elite.
Mhm.
Okay, and this is where I distinguish this. Blue blood actually comes from the term, it's a royal term.
I
It
know that.
means basically royalty is passed down from generation to generation.
Yep.
So my thought is that to be truly a royal descent and be a blue blood, you had to be a blue blood
Back.
near the beginning. I'm not going to go to the beginning of college football in 1869. That's a bit ridiculous, but 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So Clemson, under my definition, will never be a blue blood because
Correct.
they never were a blue blood. They could win 50 national championships in a row. Are
Yep.
they elite?
Yep.
Yes, they've been elite. They've made themselves elite. But again, I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm just saying this is one way to look at it, that
Yep.
you're either a blue blood or you're not, and nothing's ever going to change it.
Well,
Whereas, is Nebraska elite? No. Have they been elite? Of course. So that changes constantly. Who's elite?
and I think your point is solidified by the fact that Nebraska has been down for so long, and Texas was down for so long, and these schools are USC, and these schools are still each year considered blue bloods, even in a world where everybody is the most down on Nebraska they've ever been, but still recognize them as a blue blood. Everybody, everything you hear, and even when you're hearing, the talking heads talk about Nebraska, it's all about history. And I think to your point, like when you can talk about a school's history like that, that is what makes them a blue blood. Like Ohio State, probably, I would say the most sustained success of any school in college football history. They will never not be a blue blood. They could literally lose every game for the next 10 years and they will still be known as a blue blood. It's one of those that's like those schools are entrenched in college football. Those are the brands that I guess college football, the foundation of college football as we remember it. And yeah, so I think it's one of those things. I think you're right where it's Georgia, is elite, maybe not a blue blood. And going forward, I don't think there will be a team that surpasses these, USC's, Oklahomas and stuff like that, because it's all about the history.
Yeah.
So I 100% agree there.
I'm with you on that.
Sorry, Georgia.
I was just curious to get your blue blood take and where that came from and what that is. It's also like when people will make comments on my shows all the time and in the chat about so and so's relevant, so and so's not relevant, and then I have to ask, what's your definition of being relevant?
Yeah, exactly. Because people call, and I tweeted about it yesterday. People have been, everybody who's been calling Nebraska irrelevant for years are the same people yesterday that were up in arms about the RAIOLA news. And I'm just like, if Nebraska is being talked about, if Georgia fans and Colorado fans are hopping in our streams to talk trash, we are 100% relevant. I am not going to go in a Rutgers stream and start talking about Rutgers if they get a player from us. It's one, well, I probably wouldn't hop in any stream, but you get my point. It's one of those things that's like, you're not doing that unless that school means something to you in some kind of way. And if you have to call a school irrelevant, that means they're relevant. Are you trying to convince us or yourself? That's the real question.
Yeah.
So, and I think just based on the formula I looked at for the Blue Bloods, they do go by all-time winning percentage, national championships. I believe they even factor in, Heisman's and NFL talent, like all of those things. I think all of that kind of factored in this aggregate score.
So that's pretty similar to what I do. So what I do every offseason, and I've got a spreadsheet, and all I need to do is take the last season and just add it to it. I've got a spreadsheet that's got every conference and every team in every conference, winning percentage, conference championships, national championships, top 25 finishes, top 10 finishes, top 5 finishes, bowl record, major bowl record, Heisman trophies, and then all the positional trophies. I've got all those broken down in regards to, every position has a major award, and then NFL draft selections and first round NFL draft selections, and kind of throw that into a big formula.
Yep. And it's interesting that even with, the NFL stuff, because Nebraska's, old school teams weren't built for you know, these guys to go to the NFL, you know, the Tommy Frazier's of the world, you know, Eric Crouch, you know, my favorite player of all time. That's why I got his jersey back there. Went to the NFL as a receiver. And I remember watching his first preseason game. I was so excited. Like, and he got a pass and just got laid out. And so, you know, it wasn't one of those things where Nebraska was putting out, you know, first rounders outside of, you know, running backs and linemen and stuff like that. So even having that in there with these other schools building a lot more for the NFL and getting these players out is still, you know, it's pretty impressive that they're still up there. And up until about 5 years ago, I believe it was, they still had the highest winning percentage of the previous 50 years. So, you know, it's a wide range. You know, I think we kept extending it just to make sure that but over the last 50 years, up until about 5 years ago, they had the highest winning percentage. So that still factors into being a blue blood, just having success over decades like that, just being down for a couple decades. The fact that Nebraska is still one of those teams that everybody thinks can come out of this. And I think that's because they're a blue blood. The reason why Nebraska can get 3, 4 stars, you know, and now 5 stars is because of history, you know, and that all plays a factor. Being a blue blood is important. And recruiting and all that, you know, even young players, they hear about the history and a lot of them talk about it, you know, and they want to get Nebraska back to that. You don't have players talking about that and coming to a school unless you're a blue blood with a history like that and people are talking about it. So,
absolutely. Folks, we do this every Tuesday. Justin and myself, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central. So please make it on back here next Tuesday. And I guess we'll have to figure out we'll figure out what our holiday plans are. So it probably will be next Tuesday. We'll have to check with Justin. We'll get it together. That's the big reason why, folks, you subscribe to the channel. You hit the bell for the notifications. That way you know when we go live. So for example, Dylan RAIOLA flips and Justin goes live, and other various news that may come out with us going live, and our weekly show that we try to make at the same time. But of course, we're going through the holiday season, so we will let you know when we are going to be live next.
Absolutely. Yeah. And keeping tabs on the community post too. I can update there as need be for shows, you know, on the YouTube channel, the community feed there. If y'all know where that is, keep an eye on that as well, because I can update with show times and stuff like that as we make them. So, but the best thing is turn the bell on so that way you'll be notified, you know, when we go live, when the live is set up. So
there we go. All right, Justin, I appreciate you making this work. Everybody check out Cheesy Corn Sports. It's right here on YouTube. You can leave what we're doing right now. I got 2 requests, folks. If you just joined us here in the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes, as is often the case, we've got the most people in here at the end.
mm-hmm.
So please go back and watch what you missed. It's all going to be right here for you. And also check out what Justin has going on there at Cheesy Corn Sports right here on YouTube.
Yep. And then also the live stream's up as well. Like Mark mentioned earlier, if you want to go check that out from yesterday, just get my reaction. I'm just kind of talking through it, was reading some comments and, you know, just give a little bit of my thoughts, rambling a little bit. So y'all can go check that out as well.
All right, folks, we're also going to post the conversation Justin and I had on our Big Ten Live show on Monday night. I'm going to clip that off and we'll be posting that here probably sometime tomorrow as well. All right, Justin, we appreciate it.
Right.
Always enjoy the conversation and appreciate you making this work.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mark.